Well, hello there. Thanks for joining me. My name is Stephanie, and I'm an alcoholic in recovery. Welcome back to the Big Book study. Here we talk about the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is the program that saved my life. I am an atheist, so some of the words that I read here, I will change God to the word good, and I will try my best to make this text non-binary and all-inclusive. This book is 90 years old, so the writing is a little chunky for the modern day speaker, so bear with me as I get into our Big Book study for bedtime. We will begin on chapter 3, where we left off last time, beginning the chapter more about alcoholism. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, we will control and enjoy the drinking is a great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. I will pause there, and this is where we are first introduced to step 1 on the 12 steps, which is we admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. I continue. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently may be, has to be smashed. We alcoholics are people who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. And I'll pause there to let you know that I have heard this passage thousands of times, probably at this point, in all of the meetings I've attended online and in person, because this chapter 3 is where we begin the step work. And this passage on page 30 is extremely important to digest, wrap our heads around, comprehend, and apply to our theory and practice of the 12 steps. So I'm actually going to read it again. Fast forward a little bit if you don't want to hear it, but it's so profound, it's important to repeat. Most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think they are bodily and mentally different from their fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, we will control and enjoy the drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people, or presently may be, has to be smashed. We alcoholics are people who have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no real alcoholic ever recovers control. All of us felt at times that we were regaining control, but such intervals, usually brief, were inevitably followed by still less control, which led in time to pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization. We are convinced that alcoholics of our type are in the grip of a progressive illness. Over any considerable period, we get worse, never better. We are like men who have lost their legs. They never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which will make alcoholics of our kind like other people. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there have been brief recovery, followed always by a still worse relapse. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree there is no such thing as mass of making a normal drinker out of an alcoholic. Science may one day accomplish this, but it hasn't done so yet. I will pause there. So that is the entirety of page 30, more about alcoholism, the passage that we often read in the meetings of AA, virtual and in person. It's so important, this passage, and it's on page 30 of this edition. And it's super important to pay attention to this fact here. They're saying that, they've tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, there's brief recovery, followed always by a still worse relapse. And that is true. Never a person has gone through the AA program without a relapse. I've yet to meet them. I would love to meet them. But part of the journey, part of the recovery, part of the process is falling down and relapse. Because every time we relapse, we learn something new about ourselves. And we learn something new about where we're at with our relationship with the alcohol. And I had 7 months alcohol free in the program when I decided to celebrate with a beer like a total alcoholic. What was I thinking? The next day I went right back to a meeting. I called my sponsor. I said, "You guys, I made a mistake. I drank last night. I don't know what happened, but I'm back." And they said, "That's okay. We're glad you came back." Because that's really the key of making a program work, is never giving up. Let's think about that. If I mess up and I don't go back to a meeting, or I don't admit it, or I don't tell on myself, and I just continue to keep it in, where is that going to take me? My goal is healing. So therefore, honesty. The only shame to be held is in the lies you continue to tell while you're trying to work the program. There were plenty of times when I discovered random alcohol in my recovery that I had previously hidden in my home. And I could have secretly drank it. It was like a nice little gift. But at what point in my recovery, at a certain point in my recovery, the desire to secretly drink fell away. And my self-worth, my self-integrity, my truthfulness to myself and my loved ones mattered more than that drink. But that was many, 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 many months in the program. Many, 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 many months, including talk therapy and including antidepressants. And that was many years ago. And it's 4.5 years since I've drank, but it doesn't mean I'm staying away from the program. It means I stay close to the program, because the program is what's kept me off of the sauce. The program is not what stops you from drinking. You can stop yourself from drinking. The program is what keeps you from drinking again. Back to the text. Middle of page 31. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe they are in that class. By every form of self-deception and experimentation, they will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule, therefore non-alcoholic. If anyone who is showing inability to control their drinking can do the right about face and drink like a gentle person, our hats are off to them. Heaven knows we have tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. Here are some of the methods we have tried. Drinking beer only. I've done that. Limiting the number of drinks, never drinking alone, never drinking in the morning, drinking only at home, never having it in the house, never drinking during business hours, drinking only at parties, switching from scotch to brandy, drinking only natural wines, agreeing to resign if ever drunk on the job, taking a trip, not taking a trip, swearing off forever with and without a solemn oath, taking more physical exercise, reading inspirational books, going to health farms and sanitariums, accepting voluntary commitment to asylums. We could increase the list ad infinitum. I love that term, ad infinitum. We will pause there. Have we not all been there? If you're sitting through this video with me this far, please drop a thumbs up for me and let me know you are still here. And let me know you understand this, because I get it. I would negotiate so hardcore with my alcohol. All these things listed, I made those rules for myself. And I always failed at keeping my boundaries, my self-proposed boundaries, which again, every time I failed at keeping that boundary I had set for myself, it wasn't something I was telling my friends. I was secretly trying to cut back because I secretly knew way before I entered the program. But every time I would give myself a boundary, I would fail and I would feel bad about myself. So I'd end up drinking more because I felt that shame cycle. That doesn't happen anymore because we are increasing our sobriety fitness, our emotional sobriety by working the program, just like we would exercise at the gym to work our fitness. Back to the text. We do not like to pronounce any individual as alcoholic, but you can quickly diagnose yourself. Step over to the nearest bathroom and try some controlled drinking. Try to drink and stop abruptly. Try it more than once. It will not take long for you to decide if you are honest with yourself about it. It may be worth a bad case of jitters if you get a full knowledge of your condition. Let's pause there just because there's so many great nuggets of knowledge in this book. Let's not gloss through it. Let's not get lost in the dogma. Let's get in the thick of the real solution here. And the founders of AA have told us, you might not think you have a problem, but if you don't, then try this. Just go stand in a mirror, drink, start drinking, and then stop. And stop for good. And that's it. Just stop. And that's it. Stop. Never again drink. But what he's saying is probably won't happen like that, right? You might stop then, but then maybe the next day, or maybe you make it 2 days. Yeah. The reality is I knew I was a problem drinker when I was buying Black Label whiskey and drinking it alone while I was writing an album. And at the time, it helped me release my demons and be creative and all of that. Now, I wasn't drinking when I went to record my album, but in the creative process during that time, the whiskey helped me. But it was also in a time when I was waking up with jitters and feeling nauseous and like those cold sweats. It was the first time in my life that I really was feeling those symptoms of alcohol withdrawal and daily drinking. And that was probably 2012 or 13, somewhere in there. But they're saying that, stop drinking and see that maybe you might get a case of the jitters, the delirium tremens, and then you will have the gift of knowledge about your own self and your own limitations, your own boundaries, and your own ability to control the drink. And that case of the jitters might be the most valuable discomfort you feel for the rest of your life if you're lucky enough to live long. Because most of us problem drinkers, we never make it this far. It's a miracle that you are here, and I'm proud of you, and I'm so happy that you are here. If you made it this far in the video, please drop a comment, like or share, or please subscribe. It helps us spread the word of alcohol abstinence, which is making my dreams come true. I truly believe this is important work. Back to the text. Though there is no way of proving it, we believe that early in our drinking careers, most of us could have stopped drinking. But the difficulty is that few alcoholics have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. That is that right there. Oh, I have to highlight that. You know, that stubborn, I'm not a problem drinker. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't need to stop yet. And this is the thing I tell people. By the time you realize you got to stop, you're in the thick of your addiction and it's too late. Though there is no way of proving it, we believe that early in our drinking careers, most of us could have stopped drinking, but the difficulty is that few alcoholics have enough desire to stop while there is yet time. We've heard of a few instances where people who showed definite signs of alcoholism were able to stop for a long period because of overpowering desire to do so. Here is one. A man of 30 was doing a great deal of spree drinking. He was very nervous in the morning after these bouts and quieted himself with more liquor. He was ambitious to succeed in business, but saw that he would get nowhere if he drank at all. Once he started, he had no control whatever. He made up his mind that until he had been successful in business and had retired, he would not touch another drop. An exceptional man. He remained bone dry for 25 years and retired at the age of 55 after a successful and happy business career. Then he fell victim to a belief which practically every alcoholic has, that his long period of sobriety and self-discipline had qualified him to drink as other people. Out came his carpet slippers and a bottle. In 2 months, he was in a hospital, puzzled and humiliated. He tried to regulate his drinking for a while, making several trips to the hospital meantime. Then, gathering all his forces, he attempted to stop altogether and found he could not. Every means of solving his problem, which money could buy, was at his disposal. Every attempt failed. Though a robust man at retirement, he went to pieces quickly and was dead within 4 years. All right, we'll pause there at the top of page 33. There's our first anecdotal story of a person that these people knew. Now, these are all true stories. I've never debunked it or anything, but no one's ever said anything to the contrary. And so this man was able to not drink his entire career, become successful, happily retire at the age of 55, which is pretty young, especially these days. And sounds like in 4 years before he was 60, he was dead because of the drinking. And haven't we done this? Haven't we said to ourselves, I have earned and fully qualified myself for this glass of wine because I had a hard day. Oh, I graduated college. Of course I deserve a bender. We're going drinking, right? We've all been there. All of us problem drinkers, all of us alcohol lovers. I would love to just call us alcohol lovers in abstinence. Doesn't that sound better? We are alcohol lovers in abstinence. And whether or not you are in abstinence today, that is okay. You're welcome. You are welcome to stay and glean what you will. Please drop a comment, say hello. My email address is in the description of this show. Back to the text. This case contains a powerful lesson. Most of us have believed that if we remained sober for a long stretch, we could thereafter drink normally. But here's a man who at 55 years found he was just where he had left off at 30. We have seen the truth demonstrated again and again. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Commencing to drink after a period of sobriety, we are in a short time as bad as ever. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol. We have seen the truth demonstrated again and again. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Commencing to drink after a period of sobriety, we are in a short time as bad as ever. If we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol. No, because that is where the trap is. Young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think that they can stop as he did on their own willpower. We doubt if many of them can do it because none will really want to stop, and hardly one of them because of the peculiar mental twist already acquired. Will find he can win out. Young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think that they can stop as he did on their own willpower. We doubt if many of them can do it because none will really want to stop, and hardly ready acquired will find he can win out. Several of our crowd, people of 30 or less, had been drinking only a few years, but they found themselves as helpless as those who had been drinking 20 years. To be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time, nor take the quantities some of us have. This is particularly true of different statured people and gender. Potential female alcoholics often turn into the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. Let's pause there. There will be some weird patriarchy, misogynistic, sexist comments in here that I think are more based on physiology and biology and the science, but it comes off like machismo. Try to let that roll off your shoulders. We're going to take what works and leave the rest behind. What they're saying is if you're a smaller person, you can actually be consumed by alcoholism quicker if you're frail, basically, or smaller or of less muscle mass, or vice versa. It kind of doesn't discriminate and you kind of never know, is what they're saying. Certain drinkers who would be greatly insulted if called alcoholics are astonished at their inability to stop. We who are familiar with the symptoms see large numbers of potential alcoholics among young people everywhere, but try and get them to see it. As we look back, we feel we had gone on drinking many years beyond the point where we could quit on our willpower. I will pause there at the top of 34. That's true. As I, a 44-year-old who stopped drinking when I was 39 years old, as I look back, if I knew then what I know now, I had plenty of time to stop drinking before it had consumed my life with the ritual, the habitual, the integrated nature, my reliance on it. That just progressed over time, which is what they mean by a progressive disease, meaning it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I used to think of progressive disease as something that's just happens over time. But I now understand progressive disease means it compounds. It gets bigger like a snowball. And by the time you realize this ball is too big, you cannot lift it. You cannot handle it. It has progressed beyond manageability, which is why step one is admitting that we are powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. If I had the chance to go back, I would probably stop my drinking right at the age of 30. Because I had a bit of a moment there at 30 where I kind of sold everything and I moved to St. Lucia. And that lifestyle change could have allowed an easy abstinence from alcohol because I wasn't super dependent on it at that point. But because I did not have any emotional support tools at my disposal or any mental health support, I was not well enough or aware enough to do such a thing. The people I know and who I love and what I know now, they will get an earful about my experience and what I believe, because education is the only way we can save our friends and family from this disease. Because innocent people are dying. People who just are trying to have a nice social drink, before they know it, they're an alcoholic. They were just trying to fit in at a party, and before they know it, they're an alcoholic. Or before they know it, they have accidentally murdered someone in a car accident. We don't need this. Alcohol abstinence is possible, and it is a good thing. And it's something that we should be talking about. It's the new AA, just alcohol abstinence. Back to the text. If anyone questions whether he has entered this dangerous area, let him try leaving liquor alone for 1 year. If there is a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there is scant chance of success. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remain sober for a year or more, becoming serious drinkers again later. Though you may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may yet be a potential alcoholic. We think few to whom this book will appeal can stay dry anything like a year. Some will be drunk the day after making their resolutions, most of them within a few weeks. And I will pause there because my son has just arrived home. I'm going to go greet him and we will pick up in a little bit. I'll catch you momentarily. Well, hello again. I'm back. I decided to switch the lighting. Let me know if you hate it in the comments. Where we left off, Chapter 3, more about alcoholism, middle of page 34. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. We are assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which they have already lost the power to choose whether they will drink or not. Many of us felt that we had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever, yet we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it. This utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. How then shall we help our readers determine, to their own satisfaction, whether they are one of us? The experiment of quitting for a period of time will be helpful, but we think we can render an even greater service to alcoholic sufferers and perhaps to the medical fraternity. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking, for obviously this is the crux of the problem. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? Friends who have reasoned with them after a spree, which has brought them to the point of divorce or bankruptcy, are mystified when they walk directly into a saloon. Why do they do that? Of what are they thinking? Our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. This person has a charming wife and family. They inherited a lucrative automobile agency. They had a commendable World War record. They were a good salesman. Everybody liked them. Jim was an intelligent person, normal so far as we could see it, except for a nervous disposition. Jim did no drinking until they were 35. In a few years, Jim became so violent when intoxicated that Jim had to be committed. On leaving the asylum, they came into contact with us. We told Jim what we knew of alcoholism and the answer we had found. Jim made a beginning. The family was reassembled, and Jim began to work as a salesman for the business he had lost through drinking. All went well for a time, but Jim failed to enlarge Jim's spiritual life. To the consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. On each of these occasions, we worked with Jim, reviewing carefully what had happened. Jim agreed that they were a real alcoholic and in need of in a serious condition. Jim knew Jim faced another trip to the asylum if they were to keep on. Moreover, they would lose their family for whom they had a deep affection. Yet, Jim got drunk again. We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. Yet, Jim got drunk again. We asked Jim to tell us exactly how it happened. This is Jim's story. I came to work on a Tuesday morning. I remember I felt irritated that I had to be a salesperson for a concern I once owned. I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Then I decided to drive into the country and see one of my prospects for a car. On the way, I felt hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. I had no intention of drinking. I just thought I would get a sandwich. I also had the notion that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar, for I had been going to it for a few years. I had eaten there many times during the months I was sober. I sat down at the table, ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still no thought of drinking. I ordered another sandwich and decided to have another glass of milk. Suddenly, the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. I ordered a whiskey and poured it into the milk. I vaguely sensed I was not being any too smart, but felt reassured as I was taking the whiskey on a full stomach. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey and poured it into more milk. That didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another. Thus started one more journey into the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of that intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always caused Jim. They had so much knowledge about themselves as an alcoholic, yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that Jim could take whiskey if only Jim mixed it with milk. Let's pause there. That is some funny stuff. I mean, let's talk about how funny that is, right? The fact that the man ordered a sandwich and a milk, no thoughts of drinking, or orders another sandwich and a glass of milk. I believe this was the 1950s. And then he decides whiskey would be okay because he had a full stomach. Now, who drinks milk with a sandwich? What grown man? I don't know. That is weird. Although, as a true crime buff, I do know that Scott Peterson, the guy who murdered Lacey Peterson and their little unborn son Connor, he, on the day that his wife was murdered, he had a piece of pizza with a glass of milk as well. So I don't know if that's an alcoholic thing or just a weirdo thing. But I also, at one point in my deep, deep, deep drinking, had discovered the fact that milky substances would really soothe my stomach and make the alcohol feel less harsh. Because at the point in which I needed to stop, every time I drank, I could feel the burn over my taste buds, through my mouth, through my oral cavity, down my esophagus, into my stomach, and it would burn. That warm feeling you get when you drink something alcoholic, feels good at first. It was that, but not a good way. More like a scorching way, like a chemical burn. And so my natural instinct in those drinking moments was to turn to milky substances. I started drinking more milk. I started drinking a lot more coconut milk and like curry, rice, creamy types of foods and drinks. And I also wanted a lot of pickle juice, salt. And I would drink bottles of pickle juice at the very end there. It was quite disgusting and weird. But here we have the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous letting us know that there seems to be no rhyme or reason of the true problem drinker. Things can be going great, and that's exactly when they choose to throw it all away with a drink. Not because they want to ruin it, because it is going great, and that's how we handle success in our life as alcoholics. And this is what happens when there's no program in place. Now, this is an anecdote about a man named Jim who was not working a program. And therein lies the problem. He relapsed quite quickly for quite a stupid reason. And I think that's going to do it for us today. I'll leave you with the acceptance passage from the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is from page 417. I believe if most of us can embody and apply this passage to their lives, there will be a lot less suffering and addiction. And it goes like this. Acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, thing, or situation as exactly the way it is supposed to be at this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Until I could accept my alcoholism, I could not stay sober. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. Think about that. Acceptance is surrender of control. You must remember the only control you have is over your own choices. So make good choices today. And until next time, please leave me feedback if you care to see anything specific or if you want to hear me talk about anything. Until next time, email me if you want a sponsor or a friend. No drinking. Keep smiling. Namaste.
Doesn't it feel good when you're just about to do something that you know is wrong and you decide to do something